Hey everyone, today we talk about the firestorm that's erupted between China and Japan. It happened so fast you could almost get whiplash. 1 minute things are simmering along as usual. The next, we're hearing about canceled tourist flights, a blanket ban on all Japanese seafood imports, a move estimated by Tokyo's Ministry of Agriculture to be worth over $1.5 billion annually, and official letters flying into the UN headquarters. It all centers on Japan's new Prime Minister, Sennaya Takeiichi, and her comments about Taiwan. Essentially, she broke from the carefully crafted ambiguity of past leaders and said point blank in the Diet that if China were to invade Taiwan, it could constitute a survival-threatening situation for Japan, a classification that would legally allow for military intervention under its post-war constitution. The peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait is directly connected to the survival of our nation, she declared. A line far more explicit than any of her predecessors dared to use. China's response was immediate and furious. Beijing summoned Japan's ambassador to lodge a formal protest, with officials warning that Tokyo was playing with fire. They sent a letter to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, penned by their permanent representative, Feng, saying if Japan dares to militarily intervene, that's an act of aggression, and China will exercise its inherent right of individual or collective self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter. In Washington, a State Department spokesperson urged calm and dialogue, but reaffirmed that the U.S. commitment to Japan's defense is ironclad. Japan's spokesperson shot back, saying China's claim that Japan has changed its stance is, quote, groundless. So we have this massive diplomatic standoff. But what's really fascinating here isn't just the public fight, it's the speed. As reported by The Guardian, this escalated in a way that feels different. And I think that's because there are deeper currents pulling these two countries apart, things that have been building for years just beneath the surface. Diplomacy, at the end of the day, is a pragmatic art. It's all about dynamic measurement, about pushing and pulling. And from that perspective, China's strong reaction isn't really an overreaction. You have to look at what's been happening inside Japan. There's been a stunningly rapid rise of a new kind of far right, and it's not your grandfather's nationalism. This is a movement fueled by the internet. And as news outlet Al Jazeera has noted, it has a lot of young supporters. Anyone who has spent time in Japan knows about the culture of respect, of politeness, of holding your tongue in public. But online, it's a different world. I was scrolling through Yahoo Japan comments on an article about the seafood ban, and the vitriol was shocking. Commenters, the so-called neto uyoku, were calling for boycotts of all Chinese products and celebrating the idea of an economic decoupling. The anonymity of the internet has uncorked years of repressed frustration, and that anger has become infectious. As Dr. Rumi Aoyama, a professor at Waseda University, told writers, what was once a fringe monologue on obscure forums is now a mainstream dialogue, shaping public perception and, alarmingly, policy. Over the last few years, we've seen Japanese media amplify discontent, targeting foreign immigrants and even tourists. And in the last 3 years specifically, there's been a conscious effort to channel that anger directly at Chinese people. It's a classic playbook, right? When your own society is dealing with immense pressure, like a stagnant economy or declining population, it's easier to create an external enemy than to solve the internal problems. You see weird things like a rise in graffiti art on city streets, which is really a sign of youth frustration and Western cultural influence, but some media outlets will spin it to suggest it's a problem brought in by outsiders, subtly pointing the finger at China. A recent cover of the tabloid Shuken Bunshin even ran the headline, "The Chinese Mafia Corrupting Shinjuku Streets." Political groups like the Sanseto Party, which won a surprising 14 seats in the last upper house election, have gotten huge traction by spreading these kinds of rumors on their popular YouTube channel. Their official platform calls to stop the silent invasion of Japan by foreign forces, a thinly veiled reference to Chinese individuals and companies buying up land and property. So when Beijing sees this trend, this steady drumbeat of anti-China sentiment building in the media and in online culture, they know they have to react strongly. They see a dangerous fire being stoked. And that brings us to the new Prime Minister, Takeiichi. Why would she be the one to throw gasoline on this fire, to break with decades of cautious language from her predecessors? Well, her actions make perfect sense when you look at her political reality. A protege of the late Shinzo Abe, she comes from the right wing of her party, that's always been her stance, but she is also one of very few women to ever reach the top of Japan's notoriously patriarchal political world. She is under a microscope. Her initial approval ratings, according to an Asahi Shimbun poll, were a lukewarm 42%. She's famously talked about how she only sleeps 4 hours a night and is committed to work, because she's constantly trying to prove she belongs, to earn respect and solidify her power. She wasn't even that popular within the established factions of her own party, needing the backing of LDP kingmaker Tora Aso to secure her position. So what does she do? She makes a power play. She's decided to bypass the old guard and build her own power base, a base that's loyal to her personally. And she's doing it by tapping into that angry, aggressive far-right energy online. As a political analyst for Nikkei Asia commented, she is the first Japanese leader to really govern via social media, speaking directly to the base that feels ignored by the Tokyo establishment. To become their champion, she has to be more aggressive on China than anyone before her. She has to throw away the old, careful script. So, what happens next? My guess is that this will eventually cool down, but not right away. Alongside the diplomatic protests, Chinese Coast Guard vessels have increased their patrols around the disputed Senkaku Diaoyu Islands to their highest levels in a year, a clear signal. Once Takeiichi's approval ratings go up, once she feels that her gamble has paid off and her position is secure, she'll likely start to moderate her tone and try to mend fences with Beijing. The head of the Japan Business Federation, Kaidenhan, has already issued a worried statement urging for a swift and pragmatic resolution to protect economic ties. But from China's perspective, they couldn't just wait for that to happen. Their strong response wasn't just about this one comment. It was a clear signal. It was them stepping in to disrupt a dangerous feedback loop where Japanese media, society, and politics were reinforcing each other in a growing anti-China trend. They had to push back hard to prevent that trend from snowballing into something that could lead to a genuinely extremist government taking power right next door. They're not just reacting to what was said, they're reacting to the trajectory of where Japan is heading.